Hey everybody, this is Greg Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our scholarly examination of Epic Illustrated Magazine. We're up to number 12 here, June 1982 issue. And we start off with a very nice Frank Brenner cover. Frank Brenner hadn't been doing many comics at this point. Well, he had just come back to First Comics to do that Warp comic. Wasn't very good. He lost some chops over the years he was away, just doing portfolios and stuff. But it's pretty nice. Got our contents page. More Dungeons and Dragons by Bill Willingham. He's getting better. Every episode. We got our overview section. So now we're up to, I believe, Chapter 3 of Weird World, The Dragon Masters of Clarn. Written by Doug Munch, drawn by John Buscema, inked by Marie Severin, and painted by Steve Oliff. Oh, I should say lettered by Joe Rosen. No one does a very good job in this series, so maybe I shouldn't list their names. They'd probably be better off for it. Once again, another lackluster episode. Logo's a little better than last time, but come on, Joe Rosen. That's not very good. You're not even trying to make a cool logo. John Buscema is very blah, and Marie Severin can't save him. Even the color, Steve Oliff was a good colorist. He was one of the best colorists back then. And I don't know if it's the printing's fault. It's not very good. So our little heroes are chatting with that wizard, the sorceress, who saved their bacon. And she's kind of just reiterating the problem in Weird World. How the gods, light and darkness are out of whack. The gods are kind of messing up the whole universe with their little chess game. Because everyone on Weird World is just a pawn. So she sends them on another little mini quest. They go through these tunnels so they can avoid these cannibal goblins who almost ate him last issue. And we cut back to Black Magister, the big villain on Weird World. He's sailing along, and he calls back. It's a telescreen, his sail. So he basically calls back to Mercandor, his little buddy. And Valana's representational statue is almost full with evil. So pretty soon, Valana's just going to be a thrall of this evil wizard. As soon as it's full, they'll be able to order her around and she'll do anything for them. So our little protagonists they're trying to find Wolfbuck, this great hero who had lost his way. And it's kind of implied Wolfbuck was Liliandra, I think that's her name, the beautiful sorceress. That was her lover. We find him in a bar, drowning his sorrows, and we see he's been transformed into this kind of like wolf monster. And it's because Black Magister, the last time he fought Black Magister, he touched his face and changed him into this creature. He's been full of self-pity ever since, thinking that Leonisa will never love him. And this whole time, Leonisa pops up and says, I've always loved you. It wasn't for your face. It was because you're brave and a good soul. So he's going to help him now, Wolfbuck. Now, Black Magister has shown up at this, the troll camp. I'm sorry, the goblin camp. And he kills them all because they failed to capture our trio of heroes. And he says to them, you'll be worth more to me dead than you are alive. So we don't know why yet. It seems a little counterproductive, though, to kill your whole army. But maybe, he has a better reason why. So all these goblins get killed. And now we cut back to Wolfbuck and the three heroes. And they have to find this sword that goes to the hilt that they have. And that'll help them in their battle against Black Magister. And then Tyndall, the elf, he shows off his dragon whispering prowess again, goes into his little trance, and he gets the dragons to help him. And that's the end of this chapter. This is interesting. This is Jon J. Muth. The first time, I believe, he was ever published in a comic. Maybe he was in fanzines, but in the overview, they mentioned that, as you can imagine, it's not too hard to fathom, he was an assistant to Jeffrey Jones, now Jeffrey Catherine Jones. You know, Jon J. Muth was always, you could tell by looking at his art, he was an acolyte of Jeff Jones. I didn't know that he was his assistant for a few years. So Jeff Jones sent some of this artwork along to Epic and said, hey, what do you guys think? This guy's good, huh? And they liked it. Liked it so much that they published 2 stories in this issue. And this is a very, like, I don't know how to describe it, wistful, kind of weird little story. And we see this little girl. It's almost like she's in this fairy tale place. She's got a little rag doll with her. And she goes to see George, this old guy with an owl. And he says, what's the matter? And she says, my doll, her heart is broken. And why is her heart broken? And she won't answer. She keeps saying, cuz. Really nice art. Right out of the gate, Jon J. Muth knows what he's doing. Beautiful painted colors. Really nice art. So finally, she breaks down and says, my doll is sad because her parents, they miss her, and she's sad. And George has parents? And she says, I could give them a present. Something big. And we see her think to herself in a thought balloon, I wish they had wings, these horses on the ridge. And now we cut away. It says, and at the very same moment that the front door opened with the morning wind, the parents woke, chilled a little bit. Not reminded, but never forgetting that this was the same day they lost their little Anna 5 years ago. She was 7. The windows now showed a frail dawn. Imagine their surprise. So this little girl, I guess, died, and she felt bad that her, parents, she knew that her parents were mourning her. So she sent them this beautiful Pegasus. Pretty sweet little story. Here we have another Jon J. Muth. And this is kind of a goofy one. Beautiful art, though. God, look at this. How Jeff Jones is this warrior dude. And he's climbing this mountain, trying to reach this castle way up in the mountains. These kind of goofy, cartoony monsters are trying to kill him. They look like something out of a children's book. He defeats them, though. And he gets to the window of this castle, and it says, but who can escape what he desires? And we just see this beautiful woman. So I don't know, I guess that's his lover. It's almost like a poem, Really nice art, though. So I was wrong. I guess there's another Marada. I thought they were done. But when they finished their adventure last issue, after they killed, the evil wizard and the demon, she transported them away back to home, to England. But she's young. She's a young witch. Her powers aren't perfect. So instead of going to England, they're in Africa. So the past few weeks, they've been trying to make their way back to England through Africa. Of course, getting into many adventures because it's Marada the She-Wolf. So they join up with this band of soldiers. This one mercenary remembered her. He was like, Marada, join our party or we'll kill you. So she has no choice. So basically this army is, this mercenary army is hired by this queen to shut down a rebellion. This African queen. John Bolton. Some nice illustration. The mercenaries who basically shanghaied her into their service, it looks like they're just going to rape them as part of their, spoils of war, even though they're on their side. But the queen shows up and says, no, leave them alone. So she wakes up in the castle. And she's got really bad wounds, but Arianrod heals her. Even though it hurts really bad. And she's all better. So her and Arianrod are now in the castle. They're treated very well, though. They're almost like honored guests, but they can't leave. So at the banquet that they invite them to, I think it's that night, she tells them what's going down, why they were spared. It's the most dangerous game story. She's going to hunt them tomorrow. She's going to have a royal hunt. And her and Arianrod are going to have to run for their lives. If they escape, they get gold and horses, and they can get back to England. If they don't, of course, they die. So here's the morning of the hunt. She gives them a head start, this queen. And they're running, and to the point of exhaustion. Arianrod can barely go on. They're both weak as hell. Because they're trying to make it to this one mountain. If they can make it there before the queen attacks her, they win too. And they get the horses and the supplies. So finally the queen catches up to him. And her and Marada go at it. And they're both really good warriors. But Marada's better. So Marada gets the best of her. But then those mercenary guys show up. They're basically doing a coup d'etat. They're going to, kill the queen, try to take over this African kingdom. And it looks like they got the best of our two heroines. But Arianrod summons this, she can make illusions. So she summons this really realistic illusion that freaks out the mercenaries. And Marada uses that opportunity to gut most of them. She's really good, Marada, with the sword. It's a nice panel. And then the queen helps out. She kills one of the guys. And then her guard shows up, so everything's okay. All the bad guys have been killed. And basically they kind of become friends, even though she was going to murder them just, 20 minutes ago. But I guess because they both fought these mercenaries, they leave as friends. And Marada and Arianrod ride off to some adventures. I'm not even sure if there's more Marada. I can't remember. But I'm sure we'll find out in the next few weeks as I go through Epic. Here we have Chapter 3 of Abraxas and the Earthman. I like this, the logo. This is the first time it's been in black and white without the fancy airbrush colors behind it and the photo collage. And it's a great fucking logo, even in black and white. You almost didn't even realize how great the logo was because it had all the bells and whistles on it. Man, Rick Weiss just knows his shit. Every aspect of cartooning, he's pretty masterful at. So now we're on the ship York. As we saw last issue, they're pulling up to the whale planet. And our hero, Isaac, what's his name again? John Isaac. He's got his new brain with the two sides of his brain are melded together. So he's got all these kind of extrasensory powers. And he can hear the whale songs and almost kind of see them in visions. And he sees Abraxas, the giant red whale that took Captain Rotwing's leg a long time ago. Left him with that stump. So apparently it's going to be hard to find Abraxas on this whole planet. But that's why Rotwing did that surgery. Had his surgeons turn John Isaac into what they turned him into. Because now with his ESP powers, or whatever they're called, hopefully he'll help them find Abraxas. He'll help Rotwing. So he takes Falco's head out of the bag. If you remember, we saw his headless body as a mindless drone working in the engines. But his head's still alive. And he asks him, he says, "What do you think, Mr. Falco? You think John Isaac's going to go along with this?" And he's like, "I don't know. I think he's going to resist you, Captain. He's a scientist, a man of principles." And Rotwing gets pissed off and he just takes his head and throws it down this fucking hole. Pretty harsh. So John Isaac's communing with Abraxas. I think this is all in his head, though. He's not really there. But then Falco's head comes tumbling down. He says, "Catch me." But John Isaac's not quick enough. And basically, he tells them what the deal is. Rotwing says that if you help them find Abraxas, go against all your principles, because this guy loves the whales. But if you do this, he'll give me my body back, and he'll give you your human skin back. He'll basically give us our humanity back. So he's just like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that, Falco. You know, I love the whales, basically. And he's pleading with him. He's like, please, my life sucks. They kicked my head like a football. So while they're talking about this, the men are going on a hunt just for other whales. Because it's still a whaling ship. They still need oil and meat, you know. So John Isaac comes up to Rotwing and he agrees to the deal. He says, yep, you're on. I will help you find Abraxas, and you got to promise to give us our humanity back. So then he says, okay, go up to the flensing deck. Help the guys chop up the whale. Because he's just a crewman after all. And this is just horrifying for him. He loves whales, but he's got to like help gut them and gore them and skin them. Just beautiful, imaginative Vite chart showing the biology of this whale. This weird space whale. So he's so exhausted emotionally and physically after the day. He finds this nest in one of the branches. And he just collapses in it. And then this like leopard woman, the six-titted leopard woman, I can't remember her name right now. She comes up and says, hey, you got to get out of my nest. I'm tired. And he tells her, you know, how horribly confused and tired and just sad he is. So she takes pity on him and she says, okay, you can sleep with me. You can snuggle up next to me. And when she goes to sleep, she's purring like a cat. And John Isaac says he knows that sleep will be a long time coming this night. This is a story by Bruce H. Sacca wrote it. I guess he used to write for Crazy Magazine, Marvel's answer to Mad. And it's illustrated by this guy, Gerald Slater. Never saw him again. He's apparently, from the overview, he's a graphic designer who never did a comic before this. It kind of shows. It's kind of got this icky, stiff style. I mean, obviously this guy can draw. But as a comic, it's just kind of, I don't know, stiff and weird. This woman is drunk and high, and she crashes into a deer, and it causes her car to crash, totally explode. Then we cut away. We see this farm family. They raise eggs. And chickens, I mean. And then we see this woman, basically, you know, flowing through the afterworld, her consciousness. That's kind of interesting, just a bunch of oil paint. You can actually see the textures. And she's totally confused. She doesn't even know she's dead, but then she puts two and two together and she's like, oh shit, I'm dead. And then she starts changing. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry, my cold's getting worse. And I'm so bored, I got nothing else to do. I'm stuck at home, so I keep making these videos. So I hope it's not too annoying hearing my congested voice. So then she turns into a little chick. It's, reincarnates as a little chick and comes out of the egg. Very goofy. Very slight. This is pretty nice. Really long, well-illustrated article about Basil Wolverton. I think Basil Wolverton, he might have died right around this time. So maybe that's why they're doing it. Just lots of reproductions of all of his, so much of his work. Ron Goulart writes it, one of the oldest comics historians. Not in age, but he's been doing it for longer than anyone. He had comic book histories back in the early 70s. Powerhouse Pepper, all of his horror stuff for Atlas, those classic horror stories he did, sci-fi horror stories. And then this is really interesting. We get a Space Hawk reprint. And I don't know if you've ever read Space Hawk by Basil Wolverton. Really fun stuff. It's from the early birth of comics, the golden age. But what's really weird about this, they get Rick Veitch to recolor it, to make it look more, epic illustrated style. Usually I hate when they do fancy colors like this for old reprints, but it's Rick Veitch, and you guys know how partial I am to him. I think this looks really good. I also have this reprinted, authentically from the photo stats, from the Fantagraphics book. So this is a nice companion to it, I'm glad that book didn't do this. But, it's Rick Veitch. It looks pretty good. We got these space cops who land on this corrupt planet. And the ruler of this corrupt city, it's basically it's a pirate city. He throws these cops over the wall. And this planet's very savage. There's this giant dinosaur-type monster creatures everywhere. So it's basically a death sentence. And that's what happens. The monsters kill both of these guys. One of them lasts long enough to tell Spacehawk, as he's dying, he says, "Hey, you have the technology. I'm dying. Would you put my brain into one of these dinosaurs, into the Hornosaurus or the Hornosaur?" And Spacehawk's that smart. He does it. And the operation's a success. So now that cop's he's going to get revenge. So Spacehawk goes back to the city to confront the ruler. The ruler tries to lie to him, and Spacehawk sees right through it. So he just says, "Get him, guys." And they overpower Spacehawk. They got him on this rack. They're whipping him. But then all of a sudden, we look at they hear rumbling. And the Hornosaur, because now he's a dinosaur, he convinced all the other dinosaurs to help him attack the city. They're just ramming through the walls and eating up the bad guys. Spacehawk is freed. And he gets on his Hornosaur buddy. He basically rides him out of there. And the Hornosaur totally smacks the ruler of the city's escaping starship. He was trying to escape. So he jumps down from the spaceship, miraculously. And Spacehawk does the same thing to him that he did to the cops. He sets them loose in the wild. And last we see of him, all these horrible creatures are chasing him. He's probably going to die soon. There's our Marada that we saw. This is definitely interesting for Epic. It's a totally humor story. It's Ralph Reese, the great artist who started. He was another assistant of Wally Wood's. It seems like so many people were like that. So many artists did that. They apprenticed with Wally Wood, basically. And he taught them lots of tricks of the trade. Ralph Reese was always really good. Did tons of stuff for National Lampoon and humor magazines. But he obviously, you could tell he's studying under Wally Wood. He's got this level of craft. It's not just goofy cartooning. And this one's called Cabin Fever. And he writes and draws it. And it's just about how in the future, these long space trips that take a few years, they send out husband and wives. Because I guess the last mission they sent out, it was 2 dudes. And remember, this is 1982, when, everyone frowned on homosexuality. And of course, they fell in love. And when they came back, they were just like, it was bad PR for the space program. So from now on, we just send out married couples. And of course, as you can imagine, married couples stuck in a spaceship, just like during COVID, during the quarantine. They said there was lots of divorces. So these guys are just yelling at each other all day. They basically hate each other's guts. And they're stuck together in the spaceship. And they have to eat the same crap every night. One day, some hunk of toxic waste that was in orbit crashes through their hull. The decompression is so strong it rips their spacesuits off. But the husband thinks quick and covers the hole with this seat cushion. And so they're both naked, and they, for the first time in a long time, because all they do is bicker, they start feeling amorous for each other. But, he's in zero gravity, and he can't get it up. He says, he's like, "I'm not really too sure which way is up." And she's like, "Never mind. I got a headache anyway." And then he sees a giant flash outside the window, and the wife wakes up. And she says, is that a supernova? He's like, no, it's Earth. Earth just blew itself up. And so we're never going to get to go back to Earth. And we're stuck in this tin can until we die. And so, of course, they just start fighting again. And the last panel is them just like, moron, skank, slob, ding-a-ling, blabbermouth. Kind of funny stuff. Oh, man, I loved this comic when I was a kid. I never saw this guy again. It's an artist named Zoran von Jaka from Europe. And it's a Gedeon Plexus adventure to kill a dragon. I don't know if there was any more Gedeon Plexus. I guess I should have looked it up before I did this episode, but I forgot. So this is, as you can see, very Mobius, very Metal Hurlant, kind of cyberpunk. And we have our hero, Gedeon Plexus. His chief calls him up. It's this woman, really hot woman, is his chief. And she's like masturbating with a feather while she's telling him his new job, his new mission, whatever. And he ribs her about it. And she's like, you son of a bitch. So she basically says you got to go up to like the ritzy 4th level. That's where all the rich people live. And you have to have a code to get up there. So this guy who wants to talk to him, to hire him for a job, because I guess in the future the cops are just like rent-a-cops, they're for hire. He doesn't want to give him the code. He's like, the proof that you can get into my building without a code, that'll be proof that you're good enough for this job. That'll be your audition, basically. So he's just fine. He's got this flying bicycle. I just love all this, tons of stuff in the background, all these crazy characters wearing weird fashions. He really put a lot of thought into this world. So he chops off this guy's head, this one security guard, with the wing of his bike. It's a robot. He's got wires coming from it. And I like this. As he crashes into the other security guard, just totally crashes his bike into him. The head of that first guy saying, shit, man, I never even knew I was an android. So he gets into the guy's office, this fat cat, this guy. And he owns this big factory, a lot of factories. And he says, I need you to track down who's ever making this garbage, this art. It seems like anyone who looks at this art, it drains off your working capacity. And my factory's flooded with this garbage. Almost all of my workers have one. And they're nothing but walking corpses. Our production has dangerously decreased. So he says, I want you to stop the production of these posters or this art. I love this. So he has to go to the lowest quarter. So this is all like Sleaze Town. And all this amazing characters, all dressed differently, all with their little stories. And so he finds this, they're called the anti-Magoo Amazons. In this world, it seems like a big religious cult is the Magoos. And so this guy's a Magoo guy, and these Amazons are going to castrate him. So he's got one of those pictures. So he says, I got to rescue this guy to get information. He beats up the Amazons. And then he questions the guy. And he tells him, where these pictures are coming from. So Gedeon Plexus kicks down the door. And there's a robot in there. A robot artist. And Gedeon Plexus blows him away. And it turns out this robot was just drawing these beautiful landscapes. And he says, I should have known only a mechanical brain could have such a filthy imagination. So, a really good story. I wish there was more Gedeon Plexus. There actually might be. I can't remember. But I just love this, that, there's no nature in this future. So, people are getting kind of mesmerized by these little glimpses of how the world used to be and not wanting to work as hard. And we got the letter page. And that's it for Epic Illustrated number 12. Another fine issue. I think we only have one more chapter of Weird World to go. I should stop harping about it, but it's really bringing this series down. I got to say, if we're up to number 12, definitely the worst thing. Well, probably the worst thing in all these issues. And it's freaking 4 chapters. So it's taking up a lot of real estate. But other than that, I loved it. A good issue, and I hope you liked it. So I guess I'll see you next time at the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies.